But he kind of got that from his dad. And I mean, his
True.
dad, how much injury he loses his eye, he breaks, I think he breaks
Yeah,
something in
this
his
is, I think, a
leg.
good image of Philip with
Yeah.
the lost eye.
They Dan Carlin referred to him as a Frankenstein monster by the end because he was just like he could barely move. He was so broken up.
True, but that's why the Macedonians loved him also because it
Yeah.
still showed that ruggedness
Yep.
and a king that leads from the front. Because that kind of loyalty is not bought
Yeah, exactly.
or demanded; it's earned.
Yeah.
So I think that's really a good thing. And this, just like I thought I should have shown, this is like a some artistic depiction of a couple within the sacred band. Now back to the battle. I read this in a book. I don't remember the author, but it was like this entire 300, 400 page book of the life of Alexander the Great. So it is set in the day before the battle when, as I mentioned, Alexander has about 2,200 cavalry and 6,000, 5,000, 6,000 infantry and maybe 1,000 missile troops. So in the command tent before the battle, he's there because he's commander of the left wing. Philip gives him quite a large chunk of the army. So it would have been like he is giving him around uh, 12 to 15,000 infantry and the cavalry. And I think one of the key companions of Alexander said the night before, it's like, your father dishonors you quite so much by giving you so much men. It means he doesn't trust you to do the job. And Alexander just nonchalantly says, oh, just wait. I'm not even bothered. At the dawn of morning, about half of them will be redeployed to the right and center. Guess what happened? He was right. But he was not completely, on his own. Sure, he does have some experience now in leading and commanding an army and wing, but he is still assisted by some veteran generals as well. Though the main will still be with Philip and the Macedonian elites, Alexander is not unsupported. Now, the day when the battle starts, it's actually just the right wing of Philip that advances against the Athenians. So he's also keeping a slanted formation. So the left wing is abs and should actually be here, right? And it's kind of moving at a slant with the right flank advancing. Philip's orders to Alexander before the battle was you do as you want, but look for the opportune moment to strike. That was it. Now, as Philip advances, you know, the people would wonder why would he do that? 17-year-old, but he's proven himself, as I said. Now, first, the missile troops engaged the Athenians packed in their hoplite phalanxes. And to their credit, the Athenians hold their ground right now. They're not taking the bait. Even though traditionally you would see when you're getting pelted by arrows, javelins, and everything, you kind of want to break and attack because you just don't want to be suffering the hail of fire. Even though against such heavily armored men, they're not supremely effective. They're just more of a nuisance right now. And and the Macedonians are not as heavily equipped as the Athenian hoplites, and they are actually outnumbered right now. But credit, the Athenians did hold themselves, and they then engage into conflict as the missile troops retreat with the phalanx of Philip and the phalanx of the Athenians engaging in combat. And after a bit of a charge and a melee, Philip orders a withdrawal. And it was around this time also, as Philip had advanced, Alexander had also ordered his left and also the army center to advance, but still keep in contact with Philip's contingent. They don't want Philip to be too isolated, but he's still keeping that slant in their formation. So he's still the furthest, his wing is still the furthest back from the battle. Now, this is actually pretty good because Philip has now in no danger of being encircled by the center. Because if Alexander had not advanced, the entire center could easily wheel about, surround Philip, and crush him. He would be massively outnumbered. But Philip, so probably to the surprise of the entire Greek coalition, orders a withdrawal. He says, we are retreating. Now, the Macedonians are not at all broken, but they follow the king's orders and they begin an organized retreat. It's a planned, organized retreat. It's not like a panic that happens with so many other armies. But to the Athenians, especially these recruits who are fighting for the first time, what do you think is just going through their mind? Oh, Ares loves us. We have beaten the Macedonians. This northern barbarian has no chance of beating our vigor. Now, this is then they start moving forward quite aggressively. So the phalanx still exists, but it's starting to lose its cohesion. And
Yeah,
as we've said,
it loosens up because they're
it's
glory hunting. Because as we all know, in ancient and medieval warfare, the casualties, like 90% of which are incurred during the retreat. So yeah, they're trying to
exactly.
follow up. Yeah.
But they are trying to follow up and they're elated, right? You pushed back this barbarian and his veteran army, right? Everyone has been knowing about how much Philip has beaten the Thracians, Pannonians, Thessalians, Greeks, etc. Like, this is great. I'm pretty sure Demosthenes, who was fighting as a hoplite, so he had no command position, but it's just a standard hoplite, probably would have been in this flank with the main Athenian contingent. I'm pretty sure in his head he's like, see, I riled up the city for against this guy and he's weak. I am correct all the time. Now, the Athenians for now are still keeping formation, but they are being withdrawn. With it's loosening up. So the efficacy of the phalanx and its integrity is being destroyed. Now, when Alexander sees his father order the retreat, he also halts his men and orders them to start their withdrawal as well. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Now, Charis of Athens, who commands the center forces, which is predominantly the other Greek city-states and the mercenaries, right? This 9,000 contingent of hoplites. He's now present in a conundrum because the further away the Macedonians retreat, the further away the Athenians are from the main Greek battle line and are going to be unsupported. But now he has to choose whether he's going to stay put and stay with the Thebans or move to support the Athenians in their pursuit of the Macedonians. Right? Because they are at the risk of being isolated themselves now. Now, what ends up happening is about half of them rush forward and start trying to engage the Macedonians at their fallback. And they will be engaging like kind of like the center right of the Macedonian phalanx. And this is where like the Greeks are probably at their morale high. They have, pushed back the barbarians who are now in full retreat. Now, this unfortunately for them is when what the Macedonians were waiting for. It is at this moment Alexander the Third. I'm not going to give him the name grade yet. He orders the charge. The left and center left units stop, wheel about, and begin advancing onto the Theban and the remainder of the center. And as this contingent had moved of the Greek center to support the Athenian flank, there's a big gap that's developed between the forces, a gap that he can exploit. Hammer and anvil, the first hammer and anvil probably in his life. And, they move forward. And this was also where Philip, also seeing his son, charge forward with his cavalry, gives the order to his men that you're not retreating anymore. We're now pushing back against the Athenians. And this is where like the battle has been going on for like 5 hours now, okay, at least on Philip's flank. The Athenians are tired and demoralized, and they are wearing heavier armor, as we alluded to in the Macedonian reforms. They are utterly spent. And now is when the Macedonians of Philip, even though they are outnumbered quite badly, they start, assaulting the Athenians that we see here. This unit, by the time they arrive, they are not running into like a retreating Macedonian phalanx box. They're attacking a waiting phalanx with its sarissas out in full formation. The steamroller has begun. And This is where, the other blocks and the Athenians soon lose their will to fight, and this entire half of the army pretty much disintegrates at this point within, a short span of time. While at the same time, Alexander's center left and left start engaging the Theban army. But his cavalry that managed to get across, they fall on the Greek center from the rear while it's engaged with these phalanx units here. And moment you outflank and hit a phalanx from the rear and from the sides, it's finished. It has no way because the men cannot defend themselves in that angle. That entire area was wiped clean.